I'm Sonya Morton Firth and you're watching the Sonya Morton Firth Show. Today my guest is Jordan Wylie, extreme adventurer and one of the stars on the award-winning Channel 4 show Hunted. Former soldier, Jordan served 10 years in the British Army. He's also the author of the best-selling book Citadel, based on his live experience in the kidnapping of a cargo ship by pirates of Somalia. Amongst dangerous expeditions, he's raised over 1 million for charity for children in war zones running through Iraq, Afghanistan and Somalia. Jordan lives with depression and epilepsy, but does not let this get in the way of his mission and campaigns to remove the stigma around mental illness. In 2019, Jordan became the first person in history to row solo across the most dangerous strait of water on the planet. Jordan, thank you so much for being a guest on my show. And wow, what an introduction. You've done so much.
No, thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Jordan, I love the fact, I can hear the northern accent, and I want to know a little bit more about your childhood and also why you decided to join the army.
Yeah, as you say, I'm a northerner. I'm from Blackpool in Lancashire.
Yes, and the other side, Newcastle.
Yeah, two northerners and a brew. What could go wrong?
Ooh.
But no, yeah, from Blackpool. I grew up, I grew up in not a deprived area, but certainly a challenging area. I think, like a lot of sort of the northeast, the northwest, there are a lot of sort of pockets of deprivation. And I think Blackpool is a place that has seen a lot of challenges over the years and probably seen the biggest challenges of its time now in terms of opportunities. And it would have been very easy for me to go down a route of crime, drugs, which unfortunately is where a lot of my friends and people I grew up with ended up in prisons and things like that. And for me, I can remember being 15 years old and I found myself in a prison cell in Blackpool Central Police Station, being cautioned, getting a criminal record at 15 for petty crime, up to no good.
What were you doing?
I was drinking, drunk and disorderly. I'm ashamed to say. But no, I'm not proud of that. But what it did teach me was a great lesson. And I can remember very clearly. I was on the park one night, mouthing off to a police officer, thinking I was a bit of a Jack the Lad in front of my friends, and then 12 hours later, I'm sat in a police cell, 15 years old, on my 15th birthday. And I remember crying my eyes out at 3 o'clock in the morning, sobered up, thinking, what am I doing here? But I remember also making a pledge to myself that day, saying that I never want to end up in one of these places ever again. Yeah. And touch wood, I never will, and I haven't done so far. But I think that was probably the first real lesson I learned, because it was from there I realised that I didn't want to be in that life. The life that I would have very easily slipped into, as did a lot of family members, cousins and things. And my father was in the Royal Marines. He had a career in the Royal Marines, and he didn't sort of force me or even pressure me in any way. He just said, maybe look at the military. And I was terrible at school as well. I was a sports person. I played football, athletics, cricket, basketball. And as long as I was doing something sporty, I really didn't care for anything academic or academia. And that was probably a reflection of me not getting any GCSEs at the time, unfortunately.
Well, it's not, academia isn't for everyone, and I think everyone's
isn't.
pushed that way, aren't they?
They are, but it is important, and I want to, ironically, I go into schools every day of the week now, and I tell people how important it is to not that academia is important, but giving 110% in anything you do, and actually taking the opportunities that are presented to you. And I think when I've travelled the world and seen in places like Iraq, Afghanistan, that children don't even get education, it made me realise later in life that I was very lucky to be presented with the opportunities of teachers who wanted to help me develop and grow. And so I left school, unfortunately, nothing, which also meant I wasn't going to college or university. And because I love sport, I love travel, meeting new people, the army seemed like a natural progression, but it was also probably a process of elimination. There wasn't much else I was going to do. And at 16 years old, I went in the recruiting office and signed the dotted line, so to speak. And the rest was history, as they say.
And you served 10 years.
Yeah, I served 10 years in the British Army in the King's Royal Hussars, which is a Challenger 2 tank regiment. It was a combat role, a frontline role. But I guess that was really the making of me, because the military teaches you so many great things about life. For me, it was where I really got to learn about myself, about other people, to travel the world. And I think I like to say about the core values of the military has of respect, integrity, loyalty, discipline, selfless commitment, all those great character traits that I try to install in the next generation today are everything that the army teaches me. And even after having left 10 years ago, every day when I do something, I'm always holding myself accountable to those values to make sure I'm doing the right thing, not necessarily what I want to do, but the right thing and what I should be doing.
And why did you come out? Did you not want to sort of go up the ranks?
Yeah, I got an injury, nothing too serious, but it was an injury, a back injury, enough to slow my career path down. And I think when you see, people who have been underneath you for many years slowly coming up to the same rank and passing you, that became quite demoralising and a bit depressing. And actually, I was offered some opportunities in the private sector. I went back to education while I was injured in the army, and I studied for my bachelor's and my master's degree. And having those qualifications with 10 years of experience, it put me in a nice place to enter civilian life with a bit more weight behind me. And I got some opportunities to go into the private security sector, and I sort of grabbed them with both hands, so to speak.
So is it this point when you came out, and I've heard of the story about you on the boat and the Somalian pirates, and you did some, or you were well, actually tell me the story about what happened. Was this just after the army, or was this quite a few years after?
I think the story of with the Somali pirate boarding our ship was a couple of years later, but my first job was certainly getting on. But it was a phone call one day from a Royal Marine friend of mine who'd just left, and he said, Jordan, we need an extra guy to jump on this ship. It's armed security, we're protecting.
Right, so you went into armed security.
Yeah, straight away. It was an opportunity, and it was when you're in the military and you see all these privateers who are doing these jobs that look really cool, really sexy, and they're getting paid loads of money for it. It was sort of like looking at it like it was a James Bond type lifestyle.
Well, you sound like a James Bond. I mean, the stuff that I've been reading about you. I mean, you literally in this kidnap situation, and you actually it was down to you that you saved the crew.
Yeah, it was. I'd done up and down the Somali coast for a couple of years, protecting ships from pirate attacks. And a lot of people don't realise that 95% of world trade is still done on the ocean. So, the coffee we drink, the clothing we wear, the electronics in our homes, the phones, the wine, it's all coming on a ship at some point in its life cycle. And for me, it was quite fascinating because these people who control these ships and crew these ships, they're sort of unsung heroes of society because we just take for granted that our food's going to be on the table or in the supermarket. We don't even think that all the oil, the gas, the energy in the world is coming across the ocean. But it's only when you sort of go there firsthand and see these incredible people who work at sea for 10 out of 12 months a year are bringing us our goods every day. And the only reason they can do that is if they're being protected because they've got to get there securely. And our job was literally to be an armed security lookout. And pirates were hijacking these ships. And to give you some sort of scale of context, in 2011, in July 2011, there was more than 1,000 seafarers, so people who work on the ships, held hostage by pirates, and more than 40 big commercial tankers held in captivity in Somali ports. And as I say, our job was to protect those crews, the cargo, the ship itself. And then, unfortunately, on one occasion, I was the security team leader, and the security company said, Jordan, we need you to take this vessel down to Somalia. And we were doing it for the World Food Programme, so we were literally delivering international aid, so rice and grain.
So it was aid as well. Yeah, it wasn't like the coffee that you drink.
No, it was for people. There was a famine crisis in Somalia, and unfortunately, we weren't allowed to carry weapons on this particular job because every ship in the world has a flag on the back of it. And whatever flag that is means the laws of that land are applicable to that ship. So every ship is like a bit of territory or a bit of that country floating around the ocean, and the same laws apply like they would. You can't walk through the streets of London with a gun, so you can't stand on a British flagged ship with a gun in your pocket. So we took a job, me and my security team.
So you'd been American, eh?
Big machine gun. So we took this job, and we knew it was risky, and obviously our pay was reflected in that. And we took it down to Somalia, and the idea was we would be there for a couple of hours. We would drop off the cargo, and then we would shoot across the Indian Ocean and get out of the sort of danger zone. But unfortunately, as with international logistics and shipping, delays happen, which is quite common. And what should have been a few hours became a day, became days, became a week, and so forth. And we were hit by the pirates, and I can remember very clearly my 2IC, my second in command, who was on the bridge, the sort of command station of the ship, and he said, I was in my cabin, and he got on the radio and he said, Jordan, get up to the bridge now. We've got armed pirates climbing on board the ship. And as you can imagine what I thought at that point. So ran up to the bridge, and I saw exactly what he had described. So obviously that was where we earn our money as a security team. We have to manage.
Do you live for that moment? Is there a bit of a...
No, absolutely not. No, I'm not looking for that moment.
So it's not like like you're going shark diving and you see your first shark.
No, I'm not. As a security professional, the misconception is, we live for that. We don't. We're trying to avoid trouble at all costs. We're there to make sure that everything goes smoothly. So we try and manage the risk accordingly. But in this situation, the drill is, or the procedure is that we, a bit like a fire drill, you would get everybody in a safe location and you account for everybody and muster the crew together, and then you would wait for somebody to come and support you or rescue you. In this case, the special forces in the region or the Navy. And so what we did is we went down to what we call a Citadel, which is a safe room or a panic room in the bottom right, in the depths of the engine room of the ship. We secured ourselves in behind lots of metal barriers, and we were in there. And as you can imagine, it's very heated. People are stressed. People think they're going to die. And there was a lot of emotion. We disabled the engines. We turned off all the lights to try and confuse the pirates. But we always knew that the pirates were trying to find us and get their way to us so they could kidnap and have this hostage scenario where they would be able to ransom us for a fee. And obviously, as the security team, ex-British military, we'd be the prime target, because we'd be a lot higher value as a Western former military target. And it was a mixed nationality crew, lots of different nationalities in that crew of about 22 people. And I got down there, we accounted for everybody. The captain was saying, "Okay, Jordan, what are we going to do now?" And so the job for me was then to call in a rescue. So I went to the satellite phone in the Citadel, and unfortunately it didn't work. A bit like on our mobile phones, there was no signal. We're in a black spot in the ocean. Damn. And we tested that phone every day as well. So it was sod's law, really, that it didn't work when we needed it to. And to be very honest, the satellite phone and the rescue...
Just imagine the scene of you going, "Can you get it? Can you get it?"
literally what it was like. And as you can imagine, that was the plan B. There wasn't a plan C, D, and E. The plan B is we go to the safe room, the Citadel, and we call in a rescue and we wait for the rescue. So we're in there. We've got no communications with the outside world. And unfortunately, if you can't tell anyone you're there, nobody's coming to rescue you. And at the same time, pirates are trying to make progress to find you. So the clock is always ticking, and the pirates know that, because the pirates know that as soon as they get on that vessel, we've probably called a rescue, so their time is ticking as well. So they're working as fast and as hard as they can, sort of tactically. And I had some really heated debates with the captain, because when you're in the safe room, the Citadel, you don't leave the Citadel, because what we have then is a potential hostage situation. If I'd leave the Citadel, the pirates get hold of me, they put a gun to my head and they say, "Everybody come out now, he's getting the good news." And also, if there was a hostage situation, the special forces would never board our vessel to try and rescue us, because they know that someone would probably get killed. The movies shows us that.
Yeah, exactly.
So the problem was what do we do? And I had to say to the captain, I said, "Sir, I need to take that phone and I need to go outside and leave the Citadel." And of course, he was very anti this idea. He told me what he thought in quite an aggressive manner. But I also sort of tried to hold my ground and say, but there is no plan C, D, and E now. If we don't do this, the likelihood is we will die in here, because the pirates are on board. We've got no food. We've got no water left.
And who was the most senior in that situation? The captain's still the most senior.
Yeah, he's the boss on the ship. We're just, even as the team leader, I'm only a consultant advisor. I tell him the best practice. But obviously the captain hasn't been in hostile environments. I spent 20 years in places like Iraq and so on, where people are being shot at, people have been killed. And I think all that sort of experience allows you to make calculated decisions based on the risks and the threats. And for me, I had to leave that Citadel, because there was no other way we were going to get rescued. And in the end, we come to, after a heated debate, and also one of my own teammates who was former British military, he didn't want me to leave the Citadel as well. So one of them was supporting me and one of them was against. So, but it was really tough and really stressful, and one of the probably definitely the scariest moment or the most nervous or apprehensive moment of my life, because I was going into the unknown, and I think that's quite.
What made you make that decision that you wanted to put your life for everybody else? Because I guess you could have just sat there and thought, "Okay, I'm going to see this through like everybody else," but you're stepping up to the mark and saying, we can't just sit here and do nothing. What was that? I don't know.
I think I was a team leader, so my position, I I took responsibility for, I believed I had the experience. I think there are lots of times in life when you can break the rules. You know, I think if we look at all the pioneers of society, the entrepreneurs, the game changers, the Steve Jobs, the Bransons. These are all people. The disruptors. These are all people who have gone against the grain, gone in a different direction when society conforms to this way, and they've gone a different way. And I think that is often where you find opportunity, where the magic happens. But you can only do that if you've got the experience. Otherwise, it becomes reckless. And I felt I had the experience to make that decision. I also knew that I had a daughter at home that I wanted to see again. So for me, I wasn't going to die on that ship, and I certainly wasn't. I was going to try my best to make sure we all went home safely, because that was my job, and you know that was what I'd been trained to do. But also, I had in the end the captain supported me. I think as you go through life, you realise that you never achieve anything great alone. You always have people pushing, supporting, influencing. And it's always a team effort, even if there is resistance.
Completely.
It's always teamwork. And I think the best relationships in life, whether it's with your partner, your lover, or in business, or in the military, it's strong, trusting relationships that
can't do things alone. It's got to be a team. Yeah,
it's impossible. Yeah, and a long story short, I went up the funnel. I called in the rescue. The special forces came, and we all went home for tea and medals.
And did they not chase you? Did you hear the pirates?
No, they'd not made as much progress as we. Obviously, we don't know what's behind that door. And if you can imagine, on a ship, there's 5 or 6 decks that they've got, and we've put lots of obstacles. We've locked doors. We've turned the lights off. We've disorientated them. They ransacked the bridge. You know, they tried to steal a few things, smashed the place up, but they didn't make any real progress. But obviously, we didn't know that at the time. We just assumed that they're really close and at the other side of that door. And I think it's the unknown, even, again, in any aspect of life.
Yeah, anything.
It's what's scary when you just don't know what's out there.
Or you make up the scenario in your head before it's actually happened.
Well,
and
exactly.
You've probably built more fear into it than there actually... this situation's different, because clearly there is danger.
Yeah. But I also think, though, it's a good point, because where you experience fear and where you experience sort of suffering or challenge, right in the middle of all that is where we also find growth and resilience. And that's where we develop as people, as humans, in the most challenging times. And especially on reflection, when we can look back and say some key lessons that we can take from that. Because I think as humans, we're so focused, especially people like yourself who are driven, who are motivated. You're always tunnel visioned, and you're like, right, we've done this, what's next? We sometimes forget to stop and go, we've come a long way here in such a short time, and we've done some great things. Let's just enjoy the moment. And I always try and encourage people to celebrate the small goals. It might be something as something really simple or really small, or for children, it might just be a great day at school. But just celebrate those little moments, because they're gone before you know it.
You're completely right. And, we're going into the new year, and people will be setting their goals for 2020. Yeah. And the first thing I do is celebrate what you did in the year before, anything. Like you say, what doesn't matter how small.
Yeah.
Anyway, you wrote a book based on this, the Citadel, which I've got sitting in front of me. And there was also, you also helped Tom Hanks. And now, was the film based around this? Because he brought out the film Captain Phillips.
Yeah, no, it wasn't, unfortunately. As much as I'd love to say it was all about me, it wasn't about me at all. But no, because I'd gathered a lot of experience over the sort of 5 or 6 years, I was invited to be one of the advisors, consultant on a film called Captain Phillips. It was incredible Hollywood blockbuster.
And it was about pirates. I remember I saw it years ago.
Yeah, it was based on a true story on a ship called the Maersk Alabama, which was an American container ship that was hijacked, and the events that unfolded from that. And my role was obviously very small in it, and it was just advising about pirate tactics, how they operated, how they worked. But
did you meet him?
Yeah, I met him.
What was he like?
Most incredible man ever. They say you shouldn't meet heroes and things like that. I was so honoured to have met him, and he was absolute gentleman. Always had time for everybody. A real pleasure to have worked with, even for a short period, which was amazing.
Fantastic. But Jordan, you are literally a walking hero. I mean,
I don't know about
that's just one of the things that I've been reading up about you. But tell me more about what you do in terms of these running through war zones.
Yeah,
and as I understand it, you've raised over $1 million, as I said in the introduction, for charity for children that are in these areas. And there's lots of statistics out, which I've just read and I just didn't even comprehend how many children are left homeless because of war. are affected in these war zone areas. And I think it's something, when you think about war, we forget the children, actually. When we hear about the rapes, the murders, the people that are killed, but there's something in you that you don't even, you don't go to the little face, or you don't go to the children, what happened to them.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think for me personally, children are the greatest, the biggest victim of war. They're a victim of circumstances. They didn't choose to be in that world. They can't just get up and leave that world. And it's terribly sad. And there's a lot of humanitarian crisis in these conflict or post-conflict countries at the moment. For me, when I was serving as a soldier in Iraq in 2005, I can remember very clearly being on a patrol where I was in the first vehicle, and we were driving down a road to a meeting, and there were lots of children playing in the road. And as I was in the first vehicle, I remember thinking, these children are in the road because they're going to try and slow us down, because we had to stop, because at one side of the road we had a ditch and at the other side we had a river. So these children were forcing us to stop. And my military head and my tactical thinking was, there's an ambush coming here.
Yeah, I guess that's...
Yeah, they've been placed in the road, and we're going to get hit.
Yeah.
But actually, as we got closer, I realised that there was actually a crisis situation. And what had happened was a child had inadvertently stepped on a roadside bomb, what we call an IED, an improvised explosive device. And the child he'd lost one of his legs, and he was having a catastrophic bleed. And I remember jumping out the vehicle to try and see what was going on. And obviously it was a life or death situation. We put a tourniquet on this little boy. He must have been about 9-10 years old. And, we tried to stem the bleeding. He had a catastrophic bleed. He was losing blood rapidly. All the other children were screaming and shouting. And the medic was in the third vehicle, and the medic ran alongside, and he started providing treatment. And a gentleman, which transpired to be the little boy's father in the end, he ran out from a local farm, and he took the child, and he wanted to take him away. And we were saying through an interpreter that we need to take him back to camp because he's lost so much blood. He needs medical support quickly, and we can help. And this gentleman, he wouldn't allow us to take the child because he didn't want to be seen to be coercing with the British forces, because he assumed, and he was probably right, that if anyone was watching, he would be, his life and his family would be at threat, which was terribly sad. And we later learned that the child died, which is incredible. And I always remember that day very vividly and clearly. And when I was going back to camp that day, I remember saying to my interpreter, I was saying, why was the children playing on the main road, next to the main road anyway? Did they not have a school to go to? And he looked at me like in sort of disgust, and he said, no, they don't have a school to go to. The nearest school is like 60 kilometres or whatever away. They've got no cars. They're from poor families. I was like, yeah, but there must be a school. And he said, no, there isn't. There's no school for these people. And I remember thinking at that point, wow. And it took me back sort of 10 years to thinking, I didn't even care about school. I didn't even, have any thought about the opportunities that were given through school. And when I visit schools in places like Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Somalia, the children are always so happy to be learning, always smiling. And education really is a gift, and it provides hope. It provides a spirit that there is a future for them. And I always said that if I can ever go back to these countries one day, I would love to use my passion of adventure to try and inspire hope in children. And that's what I try to do. I am an ambassador for lots of children's charities, a UK ambassador for Army Cadets, and I try and inspire using the spirit of adventure. So for me...
Yeah, because you didn't just go back and visit and say hi, did you? You decided to run across.
Yeah, well, when you're doing fundraising, the charity sector, it gets a lot of bad press in some areas. There's issues of corruption, there's issues of the funds not going to the right places. And when you're doing major fundraising, you need to spark the imagination of the British public, of the donors, of the sponsors. And I thought, we live in a world where everyone's run a marathon, everyone's jumped out of a plane, everyone's climbed a mountain. Yeah. What can I do different? I said, well, I'm going to run marathons, but I'm going to run them through the most dangerous countries in the world. And that captured the media, the TV, the sort of media world. And because I got that coverage, it allowed me then to attract bigger sponsorship. So going from raising a couple of thousand, you can go into the hundreds of thousands now. And then we got a documentary out of it as well. And all that helped to raise an awareness. And it's so important. And for me, it's not about, I do these extreme adventures and try and push the boundaries and test myself, but I'm a bit different, I like to think, than the normal adventurer, because for me, the adventure, as much as it's thrilling and exciting, it's about the impact of the adventure and about the good we're doing to inspire hope in children's lives. And, the adventure is great. It gives you a feeling of success, but what's more important for me than success is fulfillment, and to be able to give hope and inspire the children of tomorrow is it's worth its weight in gold. And I think the charity sector is a very selfish sector because it makes you feel so good about yourself, and there's not many things like that in the world.
I mean, you did all of this on your own, as well as I understand it. It wasn't like you had things around tanks, or did you? I mean, did you have people that?
No. It was a solo project, you know, and as you can imagine, a lot of logistical challenges, helicopters, planes, getting to the certain areas of different countries. But do you know what? Everyone always talks about the risk, and obviously it was called running dangerously. Yeah. But actually, I can honestly say that I saw more acts of humanity and kindness in these countries than I've ever seen in our own country.
But what makes you do, because like you said, you could have just run a marathon. Well, I'm not dangerous enough, but it's hard enough.
It's only getting dangerous.
Well, here's the streets of London, you never know, really. But you take fear and you almost laugh in its face. I mean, that's how I see it. It's like, well, most people would be like, my God, you've seen the atrocities of war. I mean, that must have affected you. I mean, we talked a little bit earlier about how you were diagnosed with post-traumatic stress syndrome, but actually it wasn't that. It was depression, and they just tried to label it.
Yeah.
Didn't you have fear that was going to come back, or when you were going through this? Do you think that was a way of you battling some of that?
Yeah, I find that for me, you know, I was diagnosed with severe depression, chronic anxiety, and for me, it's never been about the bombs and the bullets and the hardships of conflict and war. For me, that's been about the stuff that happens to all of us in everyday life. Relationship breaks down, not seeing my daughter or family enough. I think they're the real challenges that a lot of people have. For me personally, I find that running is a great way to deal with mental health. Not just running, but exercise. Yeah. You know, going for a walk in the park. We've got these incredible, beautiful, natural national parks all around us.
Richmond Park. I was there this morning walking. It's beautiful. Yeah, it's like my meditation zone.
And that's what I mean. And I think a bit of running, a bit of light exercise, walking every day, even if it's just 30 minutes or so, is so good for the mind, for the soul. And I knew that running was good, but I wanted to push running to the next level. And actually, me going to these countries for a few weeks or a few months is not much in relation to children who live there every day in fear of their life. So I think also it's about shining a spotlight on the problem.
Yeah.
So as well as fundraising and raising awareness, we need to show people what the problem is, which is when I did the rowing, the world first row, that was about showing people the problem of Yemen, which is why I rowed to Yemen and back.
And sorry, this is just touching on, well, not touching on that, this is just the challenge that you've just done.
Yeah.
And you rowed the most dangerous strait of water, basically, on the planet.
Yeah.
Why?
No, it was, you know, it was a bit of a crazy idea, I guess, in some respects from the outside. But again, it was about shining a spotlight on this incredible humanitarian crisis in Yemen, where there's hundreds, thousands of children dying every year from conflict and war. And for me, I want, again, to get the coverage you need to do things that attract significant attention. And a world firsts are hard to find in this day and age because a lot of people have done a lot of things, and normally, if it's not been done, if it's not been done, there's normally a good reason why it's not been done, which was obviously the case in this one. But again, it was about showing people that you can achieve anything as well, because also at the same time, I'd never rowed a boat in my life before the 1st of January. So I trained with...
You've never...
No, never rowed.
Literally, you're getting in there, and presumably these are the most dangerous straits. You're going to have to row pretty fast.
Well, I trained for 10 months with a gentleman called Alex Gregory, who was a double Olympic gold champion rower in Rio and London 2012, 2016, and he got me in the shape. And I think even he couldn't believe when I got in the boat and I'd never rowed and I was getting in the wrong way round, and that he was like, what am I doing? Going round in circles. But I had an incredible team. Yes, I did the row, but I had an incredible team of support, training, logistics, communications, insurance. Lots of people contributed. And again, as we say, you can't do anything great alone. And that was a huge team effort by a lot of people. And it was just me who went and did the row.
So apart from doing amazing work in terms of raising all of this money for charity, when you come away from these expeditions, do you learn a little bit more about yourself? Is there any sort of... Do you reflect on?
Always. I think reflection is one of the most important things we have to do. Even every day when I get in bed, before I switch the light off, I try and go in my mind, what could I have done better today? And what am I proud of that I did today? You know, did I make a difference to anyone's life? Did I help anyone? Or did I have the opportunity to do that and I missed it? So I think reflection, and maybe that's getting older, but I think reflection is so important in this day and age, because it's how you learn. I think listening is another way. I think we're often I call it in the military permanent send, where we're just talking all the time, and I'm terrible for it. But I find that listening is an undervalued skill, because if we're listening, we're absorbing new information which we can learn from. When we're talking, we're regurgitating things that we already know. So I think listening is listening to other people. I try to surround myself with people who are better than me, who are motivated, who have got a burning desire to want to give back in the world, to succeed. And I try and cut negativity out my life straight away. If someone's bringing negative energy, I don't want to know you anymore. I've become quite ruthless in that respect. I only want positive vibes in my life.
Well, they say that you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. So why surround yourself with negative people? You need to be surrounding yourself with uplifting people.
No, definitely.
But I mean, your energy uplifts. I can feel your energy. You're a very energetic person, which is fantastic. What scares you? I mean, literally, you do all of these things, and you are like a modern day action man. No, not modern day, but literally. Is there anything that scares you?
I'd be scared of running out of cool stories to tell the grandkids in a few years. No. I think, I think, things. I'm scared for my daughter and the next generation. I think that's what I think about a lot. I think about, dying has never scared me as such, because I always think we've all got an expiry date. I think when our time's up, our time's up. I've seen great people serve in Iraq, Afghanistan, and then, have a head injury on a night out and lose their life. I think we've all got an expiry date. I think social media is one of the big challenges in the world for the next generation. It's something I'm quite passionate about. I think I genuinely believe that social media is probably responsible, accountable for a lot of the mental health issues in young people. I think things like, even when we post a photo these days, it has to go through 5-6 filters before we put the actual picture on. It's incredible. So we live in a world where we're constantly comparing ourselves. Right? Well, it's not real. It's a fantasy world. Yeah. I always think social media is like a show reel of highlights of people's lives. Because we only show the best bits, and we don't show the bad days as such. Or for me, my big passion is to inspire the next generation, and I'm fearful that we're not getting it right. I think this celebrity culture that is coming about now, where people are famous for being famous. They've not even done anything. When I go and talk in assemblies in schools and people tell me, what do you want to do when you're older? And they say, I want to be an Insta model. I want to be famous. I want to be a celebrity. And I'm like,
TV.
Yeah, I want to be on TV.
Well, I'll be YouTube now. Not,
yeah. But that's what I mean. And I think there's this culture now where we've got these influencers who have got millions of followers, but it comes with no responsibility. And I think if you are an influencer in any sector, you need to be accountable for what you post, your actions, because a lot of people, whether you like it or not, are looking up to you. So you need to be sending out positive messages, encouraging, inspiring, motivating, not, what's gone on Love Island, or with respect to the Love Islanders. Yeah. But you know what I mean. I think we need more role models for the right reasons, because it concerns me and it scares me actually, of where the world's going in that context.
Talking about celebrity, you are on the award-winning The Channel 4 series Hunted. Tell me about that. How's that been going? Is it still going?
Yeah.
I know. I've got to confess, because I don't watch mainstream. I haven't actually watched it.
And
I am now going to watch it. I'm now going to watch it.
No. It's Hunted is a great show. It's, for me, what I love about it is it allows me to increase my profile to help with charity stuff. Yeah. People want to listen to your story, and people want to learn a bit about you because you have a profile on the TV. And I think that's where TV can be good, because you can use it for good purpose. But Hunted's a great show. It's basically ex-military, ex-police, security services, MI5, MI6, and we go and track fugitives down who are on the run, normal members of society. They got 30 days. If they get to the end, they win £100,000, and our job is to stop them by tracking their social media. They're interrogating their families, checking the CCTV, police AMPR cameras on the vehicles, sat navs. But it's great fun. It's a great show. It's for a great cause, and we've just finished filming Celebrity Hunted, which was on in October, November, and the new series, which we've already filmed, comes out in February, March next year.
So has the celebrity lifestyle or being on TV, has it affected you? Has it changed you at all?
No, I definitely don't consider myself a celebrity. And no, certainly being on TV has not affected me. I try and use it for positive purposes. I think that being on a show like Hunted, which is a major TV show on mainstream media, it allows me to have a profile that I take with great responsibility, because it allows me to help charities. It allows me to talk in schools. When I go into school these days and I want to talk about going to the North Pole or the South Pole, all they want to talk about is catching the fugitive off Love Island on Hunted. And it's like,
oh no!
But and that's probably a reflection of society. But for me, it's a great thing. It's a great show, and I only have positive experiences of it. It's certainly not changed me. If anything, it's become an enabler for me to reach a larger audience, which, as I say, I take with serious responsibility. I don't take that for granted or lightly.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. You clearly are in the spotlight, and you've got a great profile and using it for good rather than.
Yeah, no, I think it's important. I think for me, my biggest honour is to be the national ambassador for Army Cadets. I was a proud soldier, so to be able to go back and to try and inspire, to motivate, to teach young children, and when you know that people are looking to you, you've got to be very clean. You've got to be sending out the right messages, and you've got to be authentic. Which is what I love about your show. It's about authenticity. Yeah. It's about real people doing real things.
So, what is next? What's next on the adventure? Have you got something else planned?
Yeah, of course I have. Yeah,
what have you got planned? What's 2020 going to bring?
Yeah, so 2020 is we're going back to the Running Dangerously theme again. We did Running Dangerously 2018, which was running through the 3 most dangerous countries. I liked the way it captivated the public, and the fundraising was incredible from that. And I want to take that model and try and use it again next year. So I'm going to run through the coldest, most extreme environments on the planet. So we're going to the North Pole, we're going to Antarctica, we're going to Alaska, we're going to Siberia. So I'm going to run through all those environments in 2020, and I'm really excited about it.
I know you're from Blackpool, but do you like cold weather?
It's going to be a lot colder than Blackpool.
Yeah.
I think this time we're looking at sort of -30 to -50 degrees. We're looking at polar bears, penguins, remote areas with no communication. So. I'm really excited.
And what is the training like? What sort of training do you have to do for that?
Yeah, so I'm going to be going to Russia in about 3 weeks' time to train. So it's getting your body used to those extreme cold temperatures, and being able to sort of manage how you hydrate, how you regulate your body temperature, and just seeing what works for me. Again, with footwear, so I'm going to be testing lots of different pieces of kit from some very kind sponsors. And yeah, just getting used to it. For me, I'm never trying to break world records when it comes to running, and I never would, because I'm not a super Olympic athlete. I always use the analogy of running. It's a bit like life. I think it doesn't matter what pace you go at. It's just one foot in front of the other, moving forward. And people always say to me, they say, "What time are you going for?" I say, "The time of my life." Because I just want to get to the finish line. I don't care what time I get, and I know that I'm not going to break a record. When at the North Pole there is no land. I'm running on an iceberg. It's not going to be world record breaking times. I'm going to be looking out for polar bears while we're running. So it's really exciting. It's a new adventure, and it's another one on the bucket list to go to the top of the world and the end of the earth.
I bet your bucket list must be... Well, is there anything left on there to do? There's still more to do.
Plenty.
What's the legacy, though, that you really want to leave behind? I mean, you've done so much. I mean, can you keep on going?
Oh yeah, I think you have to. I think for me, it's that I would love people to look back when I'm gone and say, Jordan made a difference. He made a difference to people's lives, to children's lives, and he inspired children through hope and through the opportunities that he presented. I genuinely believe that we can all make a difference in this world if we just give a little bit of our time, and if we all just give a little bit, we can do so much together. I always use the sort of strap line that I coined, say, be the difference that makes a difference, because if we just do a little bit, honestly, we can make so much difference in the world.
And if people watching want to help in any way, what can they do? And I'll put all of this in the show notes, but is there a charity presumably that they can donate to?
Yeah. I think I have a sort of an online giving page, jordanwylie.org. My handle's Mr. Jordan Wylie, and I try and be as interactive with followers or donors or sponsors as possible. Again, if you've got any questions, or if you're thinking about doing your own challenge, get in touch, and any insights I've got, I will always try and share. Yeah. And if you want to come for a run or any time or an exercise, always welcome. Any time.
And you've just brought out a second book as well. So we just talked about Citadel, but I know you brought out Running for My Life. When did this go out?
This went out about 6 weeks ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so Christmas presents for
Christmas
people.
presents. This is the book for Christmas.
Oh my gosh, Reynold Fiennes. I sat next to Reynold Fiennes when I was in the corporate world. I was up for a big president's circle, and he was on our table. Yeah,
amazing guy.
Amazing guy. Really.
Very inspiring person for me as an adventurer. And you know, really honoured to have his words on the cover as well. But yeah, this is the book for Christmas.
Definitely running for. Well, again, we'll put that in running for my life. And finally, I feel like I don't want this conversation to talk. I feel like there's so much more I could ask you. But my last question is, if you were to leave a message in a bottle for future generations, what would that message be?
It's a good question. It's a good question. I think for me, it would be to tell people that the greatest currency of life is time. I think it's probably the only thing, or it is the only thing that you can never buy more of. You know, so spend it wisely, invest in the people that you love, that you care about, and know that, you know, every day is a chance to change your life, you know, to assert yourself, to apply yourself, and just take the lessons from the past. Don't dwell on them. Don't get buried down deep in them, and don't think too far ahead either, because the future's not promised or guaranteed. Live in the moment, enjoy yourself, be kind to others, and see where the journey takes you.
Jordan, thank you so much for being a guest on my show.
Thank you so much.
Hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, there's a new interview out every Monday, so hit subscribe and like, and you'll get it straight into your inbox.